Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan, Mike Johnson coming up. Johnny, I'm sure, a little bit jet-lagged. He has returned from Sweden. We'll get his take on the trip, what he made of the Maple Leafs picking up 2 wins. William Nylander, Ottawa picked up 2 wins as well, right? I guess Minnesota didn't have a very good trip. That wouldn't be fun, going over there.
They get 1 point out of it?
Yes. 1 point. Not good.
No fun when the GM comes in, man.
Right.
The GM comes in, everyone's pissed. The coach is pissed because he's like, there's usually a follow-up meeting after the GM comes in because the coach is like, you guys, you want to keep playing like this? Because it's not like he's telling the coach that he's coming in. So the coach is all embarrassed because it's on his watch, and then it's just, it just brings back. And I know everybody thinks, oh, the money and everything, the glamorous lifestyle. Things get miserable in the fast lane in the NHL. Like, it's just going to the rink every day. No one's happy. It's not a fun environment. And you just got to keep digging your way out of it, man. It's like a golfer. You got to find it in the dirt on the range. Like, you just got to keep working and dig your way out of it, or it's miserable. So take your pick.
Well, and especially when the expectations are high, which they were in Minnesota. They've been a playoff team, obviously in Edmonton. Like in San Jose, they knew they were horrendous. Doesn't mean they're having fun, but it's probably like, what are you going to do? They're terrible. Everyone knows they're terrible. It's like a bad news bears type of situation where if you're Edmonton, if you're Minnesota, and you fully expected 100-plus points to make the playoffs, that's when it gets miserable. Like, that's when your GM, like you said, starts ripping into you, and your coach is getting worried for his job, and like, I don't think Dean Evison is going anywhere, but you never know. I mean, they're 5-8-4. They've lost 5 in a row in Minnesota. Go talk to Jay Woodcroft. He probably, at no point did he probably think coming into the season that he would lose his job in early November.
Dude, no kidding.
You know, like it would not have even been on the radar in Edmonton for Woodcroft or anybody else, but that's pro sports.
He was probably making plans for like pre-playoff retreats, like where to go to like gather the troops and like get together for playoff. And then he's like, what the hell is going on here?
That's what expectations are all about, though. It's a show me now league. It's not what have you done or what is your record. Like, it's show me, and the pressure that is on, you know, in these teams with expectations. You know, tell me if the Leafs had a start like that, you don't think there'd be changes?
Oh,
you don't think like
if
there were name a, especially in Canada, you know, they were shouting fire DJ or whatever. What was that? Last week, 2 weeks ago in Ottawa?
Yeah.
You know, Ottawa's won 3 games. The expectations and the pressure on teams that have them, you know, it's different in different markets, obviously, but honest to God, that's what and the thing is too, you've got single owners in some of these places. That's Daryl Cates. If he makes a phone call, he's like, that's done. I want that done. I'll pay whatever it, you know, with teams that are owned by corporations, you obviously have to answer to the board. Like that, there's a chain of command. Where you got a guy that owns the team, he just makes a phone call and says, make that happen because this is my team. I do what I want with my team type of thing.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, no, it's the ultimate power. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the case in Edmonton. It's the case now in Ottawa, like it was for a long time with Eugene Melnyk as well.
Right.
It's, you know, pressure leads to some wild, wild stuff, man. And it can spin both ways, right? Like you can thrive on that. Like, we'll see what Vancouver's made of when it starts to – they start to embrace the idea that not only are they supposed to go to the playoffs, they're supposed to do some damage, right? Because that market is starting to get really, really – jacked up about what's going on, and they deserve to be. You know, it's been a tough run in Vancouver for quite some time. There's been a lot of turmoil there. Now, all of a sudden, you know, they're 13-5-1, and I'm sure people are getting greedy. Now you start to think, okay, can you chase home ice? Can you chase top spot in the Pacific? Maybe in the West? Can you actually do some damage come playoff time? It'll find you, right? Like, even if it's happy-go-lucky at this point for Vancouver and for other teams who might have a bit of a surprising start, Philadelphia, maybe Washington would fall in line with that to a certain extent. At some point, the pressure will find you, undoubtedly. And, you know, that's the nature of pro sports. So, again, the Leafs are off until Friday when they're down in Chicago. They play at 2 o'clock Eastern time on Friday. It's going to be a weird turnaround considering how little they've played, all the travel, Sweden and back.
And then they get thrown a nice little back-to-back first
against
thing.
Pitt.
It's just like,
I know, it's just
really?
It's a really weird schedule, really strange. And they're going to play a ton of games between now and Christmas. Yeah. And a guy that'll be calling a lot of those joins us now. Here's our TSN hockey analyst, Mike Johnson, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. How you feeling, Johnny, back from Sweden?
I'm a little disjointed, not going to lie to you. It's been some. I've actually found it harder, and I usually do. Coming home is harder to get readjusted than going there. Mm-hmm. Then going there, you fly overnight, you kind of get through the next day, and you just sort of start sleeping at night. But coming home, I'm exhausted at 6 p.m, and then at 4 a.m, I'm staring at the ceiling. So it's been a couple days of tossing and turning, but I won't complain. We had the good ride home on the Leafs Big Bird from Stockholm into Toronto Sunday night right afterwards, which was convenient and nice to get home right away. But I don't do you guys like. I don't do anything, right? I just talk occasionally, and I'm kind of a little bit out of sorts. I can't imagine guys going on the ice trying to practice again, get ready for a game. You mentioned their first game is an afternoon game. They don't even get a morning skate and a nap in their day. It's a 1 p.m. local start in Chicago. It's going to be tricky for those teams that have gone over there to be at their best when they get their first game or two.
Johnny, when you're over there, do you ever think, like, I know the weird part, whenever I go to Europe or somewhere where there's a massive time change, you're like, I'm having a steak and it's 8 o'clock in the morning in Toronto. Like, you're like that, stuff like that. That's the one thing I always, because, going over, you're right, you can acclimate yourself right away, but then coming back, your body clock, it seems like you're just chasing it for a long time, like maybe 3 or 4 days before you settle back in to your proper habits here.
Well, I look at the other way, Noodles. When I'm having a burger at 4 a.m, I'm like 10 o'clock at night. Totally normal, right?
Fair enough.
That's true.
The way you want to look at it, right? It can work both ways. But everyone, they say basically 1 day per hour time change. So with 6 hours time change, so it should take about 5 or 6 days for everyone to kind of get back on the rails and feel comfortable. But they'll be feeling good about coming home from that weekend. It was a fun weekend for them. The William Nylander show it really was, guys. Like, we talked about it. But it's hard to explain like how much of the biggest deal of the 4 teams that were playing he was. Like, it wasn't even close. Like, it was his show, and the other 4 teams were just kind of there to support his show. Now, he had to play well to justify and make it all work, but of course he did. First game, he was incredible. Second game, he was just okay, even though he got 2 points. But he's at that point now where he's got that so much confidence and skill that he can go sort of moments or a period without playing his very best, and all he needs is one opportunity, one breakdown, one little rush, and he's a game breaker. He's that good, and that overtime goal was something special, and the crowd and his parents and his sisters and everything else reacting the way they did was pretty cool.
Oh, I had no idea he was over there and playing well, Johnny.
No? You gotta watch, though. Watch the game.
I'm aware of it, and we discussed it at length yesterday, and we talked about Matthew Tkachuk playing so well a couple of years ago, and he was like kind of mentioned in the Hart conversation. Mm-hmm. And he moseyed his way down to Florida, and he signed for $9.5 million. And everyone was like, it's a good contract. But with William Nylander, he's had 17 unbelievable games. He played well last year. He scored 40 goals. And this guy's contract conversation has blown through the roof. Can you kind of like bring this down to earth and make this? I don't know what it is, Johnny, and I can't even describe what riled me up yesterday and the boys, but it was like this contract discussion, like the contracts in Toronto, they blow up into this whole living thing where it's out of control. Why is that? As I mentioned, Matthew Tkachuk, it's like great year, 200-point seasons in a row, 9.5, there you go. But this is like, it's got its own life, its own Twitter account.
Oh, you're so right. And was it LeBron did one of those asked executives around the league about his contract, and they're chiming in, 13.5. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Like, I think part of it is because it's Toronto, people like sort of amping it up and getting Toronto. Like, there's a legitimate. I understand the NHL doesn't revolve around Toronto, but there's a lot of people around the league that like poking at Toronto because of the amount of attention they get, because of the marquee nature of their team and their lack of success in the playoffs. So I think it's almost on purpose where people are chiming in, oh, no, he's got to get 12.5 or get traded. And now I'm seeing every conversation, who would you rather have, Nylander or Marner? You can only have one. I'm like, no, you don't. You can have both. They're always planning on having both. They can afford both, and they're going to afford both if William Nylander wants to sign. Now, I'm not going to act like his asking price or his negotiating position or ultimately the contract is probably not improving with the way he's playing. But it has been 6 weeks of incredible play, undoubtedly incredible play. Is that going to take him from $10 million to $12? It should not, because it shouldn't. He plays the wing. He's never had 100 points. He's only had 40 goals once. He's an awesome player. But, I think somewhere around $10 million is what he should make. Now, you can compare it to Brady Tkachuk. He chose Florida. There's a tax situation. He wanted to make that work. It was a sign and trade, so he had to kind of agree both parties. It's a bit different than just straight pending UFA. But, I'm with you. He's having a great run. He's helping his cause. He might have pushed it from 9.75 to 10.25. Not from 9.75 to 13. Same as Matthews. Let's not get carried away.
No, it's ridiculous.
Poor Bryan Hayes, almost yesterday, Johnny Hayes. You say it. I thought you articulated it beautifully yesterday, Brian.
Well, yeah, I don't even remember what I said, Noodles, because I blacked out. I blacked out, and the mic was on, and I just kept going and going and going. But the Leafs have made it very clear they want to keep William Nylander. That's another part of the anxiety that I can't quite understand. Where I could get it if you're like, man, they're messing with them, or they've missed their opportunity to try to sign him. Like Brad Treliving said, clear and cut. I'm going to get Matthews done, and then I want to get Willie done. And I believe that's still the case. So nothing's changed from a Maple Leaf perspective. And Nylander's off to a great start. Like you said, he's got 12 goals, 27 points in 17 games. And I'm curious how your projection for him has maybe adjusted for this season. Now, do you think it's a lock he hits 100 points, 45 goals? Where are you at now compared to maybe where you would have been 6 weeks ago with a point projection for Nylander this year?
Yeah, so maybe at the beginning of the year, you would have said ideally in the 40s again, maybe get to 90 points. Basically replicating last year.
Yeah.
This year, now the start, it's probably the goals. I don't know. I don't think he's going to score 50. It's just hard to do that. But get in the 40s again, and maybe now you sort of expect 95 to 100 points. He's going to go through an 8-game stretch where he gets 3 points. Mm-hmm. At some point this season, that will happen. So I don't think he's going to average a point and a half the whole year and get 120 points. I don't think that's going to happen. I hope it does. That would be great, but I don't think it will. So I probably adjusted maybe up 10 points from 85 to 95, and a couple goals, 41 to 44. But I think when you watch him, there is a difference in the way he's playing this year. There is an impact beyond the score sheet, like the way he's helping drive that line, the way that he is really creating for himself and his line mates. He did it a lot last year. Feels like he's doing it more this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's significant, obviously. Because Tavares has had a good year, a really good year. But I think a lot of that has been sparked by the fact that
Willie.
A function of Nylander. And the same thing with Bertuzzi, where Bertuzzi's come alive. And he played well in that first game against Detroit. But he also got those on a tee from Willie. His goal was just Nylander saying, here, stick your skate out, basically, and it's going to go in, which is massive. In terms of team success.
Not lost, Hayes. That's not lost on Toronto. The organization understands what makes Willie unique on this team. After Austin, he's physically the most gifted player they have.
Right.
And he can do things on his own to help his line mates more than maybe anyone but Austin. Maybe Mitch does it with his passing, but physically, the way he skates and protects it and gets it up the ice, he'll allow Tavares to be great this year and great again next year. And he'll allow Bertuzzi to get great value on his contract because Bertuzzi now knows every time he's under pressure, he chucks it around the boards to Nylander and gets out of the way and lets Willie do his thing, and he goes to the net and he bangs around. That's where he's really good. The fact that, he's got $15 million of players on his line that he is largely pushing forward. They would be okay, but not nearly as good without him. I think the Leafs understand that, and they also understand, and I think this is important too, in the playoffs, there's no question the game gets different. It's more physical. There's less space. All that stuff we know. He is physically strong enough to work through that. He doesn't get pushed out of games. He won't get pushed away from the net. He'll still get his chances because he's physically so strong on his skates. And I think the Leafs appreciate that he's important for that reason.
Yeah, and listen, he's getting his flowers. He's always, people have obviously always respected his game, loved that he's a Leaf. He's been polarizing at times, clearly. There's a history of that here. But it's been the Matthews and Marner show. It's been the Tavares show since he arrived. And right now it's all Nylander all the time, and he deserves it. And the fact that it was through Sweden and now coming home, he's deserving all the flowers, all the attention he's currently getting. And, the Leafs are in a good spot. The Leafs they're winning hockey games. It's not perfect, but they're packing points, on the board. And I don't think they're concerned about what the rest of this season is going to look like. And obviously that does not apply to every team in this country because we spent a good portion of the last hour talking about Edmonton. And I'm curious, let's focus on McDavid here because he deserves the focus. He's the best player in the world, and he's had the worst – is this the worst, 15 to 20 game stretch of his career? I would suggest it is. Not necessarily about individual play, but about expectation, the hope that they would pursue a cup. And they're, 5-11-1? 5-11-2 right now? And he just looks defeated. He looks miserable on the ice, off the ice. What are you sensing from him, and what is at stake for him and his legacy, I guess, the rest of this season?
So I think you touched on it there. Based on expectations, it probably is his worst season. You know what I mean? Because they're supposed to be, not only was he coming off 150 points, people were talking about 170, 180. They were talking, some dumb people like me were picking them to win the Stanley Cup. Mm-hmm. So, they're so far away from that. They're 10 days away from not even making, the playoffs will almost be gone in the next 10 days or 2 weeks if this doesn't turn around. So, that's really troubling when you're the captain, when you're the best player, to have your team so grossly underachieve when you're not playing your best. Now, for sure he's hurt. For sure he's not healthy because, he's just not doing the things that he usually does the way that he usually does them. And I think there's no reason to think that would be anything but health, given that he's already missed some time. And I think Edmonton has always, it's almost flipping a bit, Hayes, where, Edmonton has always just celebrated Connor for good reason. They had never had reason to ever think he's not doing enough or somehow it was his fault. Mm-hmm. But when it's his team, they're supposed to be this good, and he's not getting it done the same degree. The team under his leadership, again, not his fault. He can't stop pucks, but I think for the first time he's feeling the weight of the market and how disappointed everybody is with where they're at. And in some way, it's a reflection onto him. Fairly or unfairly, that's the burden when you're the captain, the best player in the world, in a Canadian team, and it doesn't go well, it falls to you. And I bet that's the first time, maybe in his life, where anyone could ever look at him and say, "You're not doing it for us."
Yeah,
even when they would lose, it was never because he's not doing it. It was always somebody else's issue, never his. And for the first time, maybe ever, it's his issue as well, and that would be tiring, taxing. And when you see him look sort of miserable on the bench because he is, that's probably something to do with it.
So, Johnny, if you were the GM and the owner said to you, go and get me a goaltender, and it better not be some jabroni that dresses up like a number one.
Damn it.
Sometimes.
That's all I was going to pick.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're not getting a jabroni goaltender. You've got to get a legit goaltender. And if teams are saying, you just got to find one, what are you going to do? Tell me. Not a jabroni.
Okay, so so my first option would have been I would have gone down the jabroni route. Nedeljkovic was in the minors. Nedeljkovic is better than
Stop
Sticker.
it. We're not doing Nedeljkovic. Shout
out. Was it last night or two nights ago?
Scored a goal and got a shutout this weekend.
In 2 days.
For him.
2 days.
Double threat.
Yeah.
So I would, you scour around the league. I'd say, listen, New York Islanders, can I coax Varlamov off your hands? I know he's got a no move and he's older, but I'd look, maybe is there something there that I could extract a pretty good goaltender out of? I would look. I've heard it floated. Now this would take a big one, but if it's like situation critical, you go and you call Nashville, who have a Skarov waiting in the wings, and they're not going to win with Saros, and say, what do we got to do to get UC Saros?
He's a rock star, though.
Well, that might be 3 first-rounders and Evan Bouchard and, their two best
I would drive him there if I was Ken Holland.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although Bouchard's got 17 points, but he's
I know, but
it
would start with Bouchard and 2 first-rounders and go from there. But if it's about the next 2 years, which it really is in Edmonton, before Draisaitl contract is up, maybe you go down that road. John Gibson, I don't. Noodles and I have had this conversation. I'm not as big of a fan as he might be, but I guess those are the kind of names you would reach out to, knowing you're going to have to overpay and you're going to rob your entire future for this guy who's going to help you the next couple of years.
Yeah, that's what's so desperate about the situation is, for starters, Ken Holland, you assume, would be making a deal, yet he's probably gone at the end of the year.
Right.
Exactly. And Jeff Jackson's the guy at the top, so everything's got to go through him anyway. And you're going to get fleeced. Whoever you acquire right now, you're the most desperate, vulnerable team in the league. And everyone knows why you're calling, and you're going to get fleeced. And I don't know. It's desperate times, and I guess that could call for some desperate measures, but they may have dug themselves such a deep hole, it may not matter anyway. That even if you acquire somebody.
Johnny, Jerry's
That's
percentage on the Edmonton Oilers making the playoffs.
17.
That is low, man. That's
horn,
appropriate.
JP.
That's appropriate right now. Look at the way they're playing.
17%?
17%, Mike Johnson. Yes.
They're 8 points out. And
they're tracking Anaheim, which is not the 77 Habs. But the bottom line is, they'll probably play better, Noodles. I can't buy their goaltending at this point. I think it's more likely than not that it continues on the same trajectory, which is not enough. Now, if they go change their goaltending, we'll revisit this conversation. But if it's Pickard and Skinner the rest of the 65 games, I don't know. I don't know. Doesn't feel like it.
Pickard, no, it can't be Calvin Pickard. It cannot be him playing. He can't start 15 of your final 65 games.
What if Jack Campbell starts heating up in the minors, though, Hazy?
Have you seen his stats?
Yeah,
they're concerning. Good. We think there might be an injury there. We're looking into it.
Johnny, we said they're so concerning that he must just be like, screw this. And he would pay a guy $100,000 for an MRI that says both his hips are cracked in half, and you show that to the coach.
It's so bad.
We're tongue in cheek, but that's how you'd feel.
I know. You're like, why the hell am I going out there?
I'd rather not play than play like this.
Yeah.
This is embarrassing. Every day it hurts me. Every day I walk out feeling worse about myself than when I walked in, and it sucks.
There's one day that he likes, though, Johnny. There's one day that he likes.
Well, that's it, man. This guy's pulling in like an Aston Martin, and he's got an .816 save percentage in the minors.
Dude, I would go full Willie Mays Hayes down there. I would just pull up in a luxury car every day. I would have my own limo to the games.
Same. Yeah.
Private jets on the road. I would do it right, man.
Why not, man?
Well, the problem is that when you go down there and you make that much money, you basically have to bankroll the boys everywhere you go all the time.
Absolutely.
Because you make as much as the rest of the team combined. So every dinner out, every time you go out, it's all on you. So
pay raise to go to the minors too, right?
And no escrow. Always worth remembering. Right. He just got a 7% pay raise, tidy little $300,000. So
making a fortune down there. He's down in the States.
It's I feel bad for him though. We're kidding. I feel bad for any athlete that goes through that. It's really, really tough.
Yeah, it's terrible. What about these reports of the NHL and the PA are looking at maybe a 4-team best-on-best tournament in 2025?
Can we not find 2 more countries? We can find 2 more.
Yes.
Does Germany are they not good enough? Switzerland?
That's it. I mean, Germany's there's Draisaitl, Stützle. You got.
I don't care if they're not as good as Grubauer. They're not going to embarrass themselves. The games will be close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I get not having Russia, and I get why they can't.
Right.
It changes the whole complexion. But you can give me 6 teams. 4
what
teams
about the Czech Republic? Could the Czech Republic put together a team? They've got some pretty damn good
Slovakia.
players.
There's a bunch of teams over there.
Yeah, it feels almost too small. It feels it will feel unimportant if it's just only 4 teams.
Mm-hmm.
there's more good hockey players around the world than just the 4 countries. So I like the idea. I'll enjoy watching it. But talk about like whatever the last World Cup with the Team North America and Team Europe, and it felt funny.
That's the point, Johnny. They got to start taking the power out of the hands of these turkeys making these decisions. Like, who came up with the young guy
players,
team?
Though.
What?
The players.
Well, forget it. Whoever's making those decisions, nobody wants it, the fans included. So stop letting people do that.
Okay. Would you rather have the 4 teams, the big 4, Sweden, Finland, U.S., Canada, and Europe and young guns, or just 4 period?
I'd rather have none of it then if it's going to be a turkey fest. Like, just make it normal, get 2 other teams, and then do it. Like, forget this nonsense.
Yeah. Well, you know what? How do we all feel about that? Do you remember the young guns? That was a bit of a weird, like, who was on that team? Wasn't it McDavid?
It sucks because McDavid was not on Canada.
Riley. Stupid.
Yeah.
And the most embarrassing part was it was Canada versus Europe in the final, and it's like Chara and Kopitar. It was like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like, that was goofy, and that was them just filling out the bracket, and it broke against them. It backfired.
Yeah, it was like Team World in the final.
Yeah,
remember Europe got rinsed their first game, and we were like, oh my God, this is embarrassing, and then they ended up, in the final.
Got all the way to the finals.
Yeah.
Franz Nielsen, like all the boys were there.
Yeah. That can't happen again. I would love just to see Canada versus USA. That's what I would pay for. Like,
that's what you're trying to get, right? That was '96, right?
Yes.
That World Cup where they played 3 times and there's fights and it was just wild. Like, I think that would be the objective is in 2025. It ends up with those 2 teams in the final, and then that would be a bonanza. They could play 3 games. It would be amazing.
That's the best case scenario.
But if it doesn't go that way, then you have something else, and it feels empty and weird, and the players, it won't matter to the players quite as much or at all. So I like the idea, and I like getting on the international calendar. There are some roadblocks in making it what I think we all would like to see it as.
Mm-hmm. And it's supposed to be a precursor for them going back to the Olympics in 2026, but who knows if Russia's even going to be involved at that point. And that's out of the hands of the NHL at this point, clearly. But
I don't want to be an alarmist. Apparently, like, they haven't started building the arena in Milan yet.
I heard that.
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean? Are they where are they playing if they end up
They're
going?
Playing. Like that. Well, that's part of the problem. Like they have to play in a suitable, safe, respectable arena, and like, are they going to fly down to like some other, Turin or some other, other professional 6,000-seat arena? Like,
building it off-site and then launching it.
What do you mean they haven't started? Like, they haven't put a shovel in the ground?
I think they've started excavating, but it's not out of the ground.
Yeah, that's wild because NHL or otherwise, hockey is happening. Like, there is a men's and a women's hockey tournament, and they don't have a rink right now. Might want to figure that one out. Maybe look into that.
What is that? That's 15 months away? Am I doing my math right? 15 months? 16 months?
Well, more than that. It's in 2026. We're in 23 right now.
Or 23. 27 months, 28 months, whatever.
Yeah.
But, like, it takes 2 years to build a building.
Right.
To be finished.
They're cutting it close.
That's not good.
They're already worried about it. They're like, and I think the projection is that they will be finished by, like, December. I'm like, you're giving yourself 2 months?
Oh, man.
If that's your buffer?
Dicey.
Dicey.
Dicey. Well, let's get that cooking over there, right? What is this? The LRT they're trying to operate over there? Let's get it moving in the right direction.
Eglinton Crosstown.
Yeah, exactly. Is our government running the operation over there? All right, Johnny. Welcome home, buddy, and we'll do it again later in the week.
Hey, have you guys talked about Robot Island with Klingberg yet?
Well, it seems like a foregone conclusion, doesn't it?
Right? We said last week Spidey senses were going off when you heard about his, and it feels like it's a 5-alarm blaze right now. It feels like almost maybe this week.
Yeah,
it could go down that road.
Even Sheldon, Keefe was like, it really looks. I was like, wow, man. I was surprised how forthright he was with the idea that Klingberg is in like a bad place.
That was
in
Babcock
a career-ending.
Yes.
Remember Jared Cowan? Babcock was like, he's got this hip tightness, that was it.
Really tight hips. Really
tight hips. And all of a sudden Jared Cowan was just gone.
Yeah.
That was it.
Well, it looks like it might happen here with Klingberg. And Tell you what, like everyone's linking, him going long-term IR, the Leafs pulling a deal with the Flames. The Flames keep winning. Why would they make trades right now? Like, why would
they're
they?
not going to win a Stanley Cup with those guys.
No, I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you, but
no point re-signing them.
But are you gonna unleash them all right now? I mean, I don't know.
Well, Craig Conroy, when he got the job, Hayes said flat out, we will not let guys walk for nothing.
All right.
Right? He learned from Johnny Gaudreau. We won't let it happen again. So if they're not going to re-sign, then he's basically saying he's trading them. So
maybe that's it. Maybe we get a robot island followed by a trade. Maybe that's a Black Friday move. Yeah, it's very possible. All right, Johnny, we'll do it later in the week.
All right, boys. Have a good week.
Mike Johnson, our TSN hockey analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota. And check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. Let you hear what Tom Brady had to say about the modern game. And the Blue Jays are pumping out some content about what's going on down at the Rogers Center. I'll get you an update on that as well. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, every weekday we will announce a current or former Maple Leaf player, and on Fridays you'll have a chance to call in and name the Leaf lineup of the week. If you name all the players in the lineup, you'll score a pair of tickets to an upcoming Leaf game. Today's player is Alan Bester. Alan Bester. I like where we're going here. It's a goalie week. Alan Bester. And this way we're giving away a pair of tickets to see the Leafs take on the Bruins December 2nd. That's a massive game. That's a Saturday night game, too. Plus, we're throwing in a $250 Vanilla Visa prepaid card with each pair of tickets to make it the ultimate game night. Vanilla Visa prepaid cards are available for purchase at Petro-Canada. There you go. Now we're talking.
It's a goalie week, Hazy, and what I'm going to do for you, I'm going to set up a game at Weston with yourself, myself, and Vez.
Yes.
Vez.
Great
I
idea.
love it.
I have to see it. I
Dude,
have
I'm
to be up close
you,
and personal.
This guy was just Bernhard Langer on the senior tour, striping everything. He's so dialed in. You got to watch Vez tee it.
Okay. I can't wait. I mean, we got to wait 6 months, and it's
Dude,
desperate, man.
So garbage.
It's dark. It's
so
cold.
trash.
It's 6 months till you can tee it again.
I don't know, guys. I think there's a trip somewhere in our future where we can go, hey, let's do an overdrive, go down to, you name a course, the Leafs play close or something like that. We make a night of it. We make 2 days of it where we do a couple shows from down there.
I like the way you're thinking.
Stop toying with the heartstrings.
I'm telling you right now, if you ask me, I can set it up. If you lay it at my feet, I will set up some form of a trip for overdrive and potentially maybe a couple fans to come or whatever. We do a little contest. We do something.
Look at you.
I will get the ball rolling. But you guys need to figure out. We need to figure out scheduling. Like, where are we going? Because we need a direct flight, right?
It's very simple.
Yes,
it's very
right.
simple.
That's right.
The Leafs have a Florida trip where they play the Florida Panthers and usually the Tampa Bay Lightning, and it's usually in March. That's simple.
Doesn't it have to be Carolina though? We need to get like you up there, the alumni. What do they do there? Do they ring a bell or something like that?
No, that little thing that you like, the David Ayers thing where you fire up that like horn or whatever.
Yeah, it's the horn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm looking at it right now. Sunday, March 24th, probably a Sunday game, 6:00 start in Carolina. I don't know. It's possibly worth looking into. We'll see. But the Florida trip, you're right. They're back down there. Not sure when they go back to Florida. They've already been through there.
Hazy, why don't we do this? The Saturday morning early flight, Carolina, tee it afternoon, Sunday tee it.
Yes.
Game Sunday
Game
night,
time.
home Monday morning.
Well,
home for the show.
Yeah, but Noodles, you've got these like huge ideas of bringing the show down there.
I'm definitely not doing
fans.
weekend shows.
No.
Well,
what I'm saying is like we find a 2-day window. It's like I don't know. Can you golf in Nashville? Like, is
no,
the
Nashville
climate
gets
not
cold,
good enough?
man. Nashville gets cold. Like in the winter months. I was there in November one year. It was freezing.
Okay, so I'm trying to find. Okay, so it is Carolina. It's Florida's. What is Arizona? What is that Arizona trip? When did they go there? Like
I
when
don't know.
you know?
That's around the holidays. I think that's no dice.
Yeah, like I'm trying to find something in January or February where we do a couple shows.
I like it.
And we
actually,
pop in.
they go Arizona, Vegas in February. Ooh. That is That's possible. Shadow Creek in Vegas, that's possible.
What days? Where are we at here? Can you
It's
just throw a
Vegas.
date at me?
It's Wednesday, February 21st in Arizona. Thursday, February 22nd in Vegas.
Boom.
Okay, so that's back to back. So what
Greyhawk,
you got to do?
Greyhawk, TPC Summerlands, and Shadow Creek done.
Yes, I could see that. Shadow Creek is mandatory. I gotta play that track.
So hold on a second here.
So
You got to choose one city though. Do you want to do Vegas or do you want to do Arizona?
I don't know. We could take this off the air and we'll figure that out. We don't need
Yeah,
to
we can't be just
iron out details here. We're on the air right now.
Yeah,
But,
we're not just sitting in the basement. Yeah,
right.
you're right.
We'll figure this out. The wheels are in motion. I like the way you're thinking.
I just
want to
think
hear?
there's something there.
Okay, you want to hear Tom Brady on with Stephen A. Smith about
Yes.
the modern game? All right, it's a bit of a lengthy clip here, but it's worthy of playing because it's a really good explanation of what he sees, what he doesn't like. And it's got me changing my mind a little bit on TB12 as an analyst.
I think there's a lot of mediocrity in today's NFL. I don't see the excellence that I saw in the past.
Why not? Why not?
I think the coaching isn't as good as it was. I don't think the development of young players is as good as it was. The rules have allowed a lot of bad habits to get into the actual performance of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think the product, in my opinion, is less than what it's been. I look at a lot of players like Ray Lewis and Rodney Harrison and Ronnie Lott and guys that impacted the game in a certain way. And every hit they would have made would have been a penalty. You hear coaches complaining about their own player being tackled and not necessarily, why don't they talk to their player about how to protect himself? We used to work on the fundamentals of those things all the time. Now they're trying to be regulated all the time. Offensive players need to protect themselves. It's not up to the defensive player to protect the offensive player. A defensive player needs to protect himself. I didn't throw the ball to certain areas because I was afraid players were going to get knocked out. Mm-hmm. That's the reality. Wow. I didn't throw it to the middle when I played Ray Lewis because you knock him out of the game, and I couldn't afford to lose a good player.
So that's that's a great clip, and that's great analysis. And I think it's accurate. The problem is you're not gonna put the cat back into the bag, right? And he's right though about the rules. Where now it is frustrating to watch, where every play is the receivers looking at the refs saying pass interference, pass interference. Every quarterback is diving all over the field. Mahomes was diving all over the place last night. And he gets the calls, roughing the passer. It's a 15-yard penalty. That's a massive chunk.
This guy, it's low-hanging fruit for Tom Brady to say things aren't as good as they used to be.
Right.
When it's the greatest of all time, and he can just critique it and say, that's not what it used to be. Mm. And the second part of the comments were, you can't say squat to anybody anymore about demanding excellence and this and that, because people just take their ball and they go home. They want to get traded or they want to play somewhere else, or that they're going to sit at home until the coach. You can't say anything to anybody anymore.
No.
Nobody likes it. They don't want to be disciplined. They don't. And I do understand that there are things that happen in the past with coaches and behavior that's unacceptable. But you can't say boo to anybody. Why do you think guys get away with murder out in the ice in the NHL? Coach doesn't want to say anything because they might just say, you know what? I don't like this market, and I don't like the coach talking to me like that, so I might go take my puck and play somewhere else. That's why they get away with murder.
Well, yes, I think you're right on that. There's a few different things, though, here with the Brady clip. I think the fact that he basically survived, he got out of the game healthy, right? Was it 08? He blew his knee out. But it's easy for him to say, guys used to get knocked out, and guys should be tougher, and the game should be tougher. He got out. Right, he got out, and he also benefited greatly later in his career from the flags, from receivers not being touched, from him not being touched. Because it's interesting, like he's the greatest of all time, his stats are off the charts. Yet he's in this clip basically empathizing for defensive players and saying, Ray Lewis and Ronnie Lott, Rodney Harrison, they couldn't play in today's game. And meanwhile, his position was the one that benefited the most because of those rule changes. So, but again, it's like he's calling for this gruesome game, which a lot of old school people are, but it's never going to return. If anything, it's going to get softer and softer. It's not going back. So I guess if he's going to get into the booth,
yes,
he's got to adjust because this is the game.
Exactly. When he gets into the booth, he has to figure out what the game is. Because if he just gets in there and starts screaming at the clouds that it's not the old days, that'll get old so fast.
Yes.
And people will just be like, enough of this guy. So he just has to know what it is and stop hoping for change or complaining about it on the air. Because nobody wants to hear that garbage. Like I said, he's the greatest of all time. It's such low-hanging fruit to say, nah, that's not that good. That play's not that good. They're not demanding excellence. Like, he's just got to make that adjustment to say, that's good, that's bad, and take it for what it is. That's what he has to do before he goes in there.
Well, we'll see if he's one of those former players who hates the current players. You know what I mean? There's lots of those guys around too that, you know, that don't like where the game's headed, all of that type of stuff. But it just, he's also has to say stuff. Like that's what, well, Peyton Manning says stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
you know the game
Romo
noodles,
says
you
stuff.
do it.
Yeah.
It's like you have to, as a former player, offer your expertise, what's happening, what's good and what's bad, and the reasoning for what went on the playing field. That's what you're there for. And when you're the best quarterback ever, you have knowledge that no one else does.
Right. And listen, a lot of people do, like, it is a rite of passage, generation by generation, to hate on the younger players, right? Like, it happens in every sport. But a lot of it was driven in the past by money. Brady wasn't short on money. Brady's made more money than all these guys, right? A lot of it was guys in the 60s, 70s who made $50,000, and they hate the guy now that's making $5 million who can't play. So a lot of that was rooted in jealousy and just bitterness. But it also is, it seems like everyone, a lot of people are like, oh, the game's better than it's ever been. Like, that's the gratuitous point to make. And I'll give Brady credit because he's like, I'm not going to say that. Like, he doesn't believe it. You know, and he's stepping out on a limb saying he sees a lot of mediocrity. You know, he doesn't like what he's seeing. But the game's only going in one direction. It's not going back towards the old school. Like, it's not moving in that direction. There's no way.
He's probably looking at some of these quarterbacks that are playing.
That doesn't help.
You know, you're looking at the guy with the Jets there and you know, Danny DeVito with the Giants.
DeVito.
You know, the guy who lives in his parents' basement or whatever. Like, literally, like you're...
Yeah, but that's organizational stuff. It's like...
I understand it, but
what is Tom Brady going to... Like, the guy's terrible. What is he going to say? Like, just... I mean, Aikman comes out. You can tell when Aikman has a hate on for a guy. He doesn't really hold any punches. He's just like...
Zach Wilson. He hates Zach Wilson.
Dude, he hates him, man.
With a passion.
Was that first play that he was all over Wilson? Was that last week, Aikman?
Yeah, that was, like it was like a week ago. Like, literally the first throw. He's like, look at this throw. You can't... It's like, Troy, there's 1 second off the clock. It's the first snap of the game. And he had it in the holster, like he was waiting to unload a clip on that guy. And that's exactly what he did. And listen, he was right. Zach Wilson can't play. That's why Tim Boyle is going to get a start.
Timmy Boyle on his ass.
You think it's getting any better, brace yourself. Because I can guarantee you Tim Boyle's not going to sling it. Yeah, Timmy Boyle ain't bringing much.
Dude, I just know from bar play, if he was like meeting someone at a bar and he's like, I'm an NFL quarterback, and a lady said, well, what's your name? And he said, Timmy Boyle. She would just say, no way. Give him the horn, JP, again.
Yeah, or she'd ask, what team? Jets? No, not doing this. Not doing this.
No.
Quarterback
Timmy
for the
Boyle
Jets.
on my ass is not a starting quarterback's real name.
Timmy Boyle. I hope he slings it this weekend.
Yeah, what if he's a rock star?
Wouldn't it be a great story? Timmy Boyle. All right. Chris Johnston still to come. CJ Miles coming up as well. The in-season tournament's on the line for the Raps. They basically have to win tonight or it's over for them. They're in Orlando tonight. So we'll get to that. Still to come. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
My second installment of veteran goaltenders teeing it. Me and Tommy Barrasso. Tommy Barrasso was playing in the Olympics, and he had a 5-day buffer before he went to Salt Lake City. And he tells me he's going to Vegas after the last game before the break. And I'm like, so am I. He's like, hop in the private jet with me and we'll go to Vegas and we'll play Shadow Creek 4 days in a row. Ooh. And I said, Tommy, I'm not forking out. He's like, on the house.
No way.
Wow.
So me and my buddy Murph played Shadow Creek. First of all, Private Bird, sushi on the way to Vegas, and then Shadow Creek every single day at 8 a.m. Like limo waiting for Tommy Barrasso and me and my buddy, and we went and played the course for nothing for 4 days in a row.
That's a dream, man.
Wow.
It's such a sick-looking course. Like and it's like it's incredibly exclusive. I think the MGM owns it, and you have to be a high roller. Like I don't think you can get a tee time. Like you basically need to get set up, or you have to be staying at their hotel, and it's like $1,000 a round.
Dude,
like,
I was a
guy.
little bit cheesed when I said, how much do I give this four caddy guy? He's like, sure, I give him 500, and I'm thinking to myself, 500?
500.
I would have rather played for golf.
Yeah, exactly. But think about the high rollers they probably get there, right? Like,
dude,
you get
some guy that's won a bunch of money that shoots his best score of his life is shoving $5,000 in that guy's jeans.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and then
big
going
time.
back to the casino and dumping $1 million into the tables. Like, they know how to operate in Vegas. Yeah, Shadow Creek, come on out whenever you want. Yeah, that's a high priority. High on the bucket list, Shadow Creek. All right. Final hour coming up. Chris Johnston will join us. CJ Miles on the Raptors. LeBron's continued dominance. The Lakers are alive out west. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050, soon to be up on TSN 2.